to start with page 5, Australia people. The first people who settled in Australia came from the southeastern Asia about 40,000 years ago, called Aboriginals. They lived as hunter-gatherers with no domesticated animals except for the dingo, a type of dog, which they brought to Australia. Aboriginal petroglyphs, rock paintings, are among the oldest artworks in existence. I want to show you, you see this drawing here, I want to show you a photograph of the actual rock painting. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? The first European to sail to Australia was the Dutch explorer William Janszoon. In 1606, Janszoon reached the northern coast of Australia in his ship the De Fukin. The French seaman Captain James Cook arrived in Australia in 1770 on the Endeavour, mapping the eastern and northern coasts. He claimed Eastern Australia for Great Britain. The first permanent European settlement in Australia was founded by Captain Arthur Phillip in Sydney Cove in January of 1788, after abandoning an unsuccessful Botany Bay settlement. This first fleet carried a little over 1,000 convicts and their guards. Now, convicts are people who have been convicted or arrested for something that they've done, like broken some law. So they were sending people who broke laws from Great Britain over to Australia. So it's kind of an interesting history. The first question says, when did the first people settle in Australia? Now, if you remember the first people, those were the people who were native to Australia, or they were native once they traveled over from Asia. Do you remember how long ago? That's right, 40,000 years ago. 40,000 years ago. Way before the British people came. Way before any Europeans came along. Where was the first permanent European settlement in Australia located? So that means the one that came from people from Europe settled it. Do you remember? That's right. It was in Sydney Cove, Australia. Sydney Cove. That's where currently the city of Sydney is located. Let's move on to page number 6. The Australian language. Most of the people in Australia speak English. There are also over 100 indigenous languages spoken by Aboriginal Australians. So if you think about the Aboriginal Australians as kind of like our Native Americans, there are lots and lots of different groups of them, and so they have lots and lots of different languages. So there are over 100 indigenous languages in Australia, but most of the people in Australia speak English, though it's a little bit different than the English we speak. Australian English contains many slang words that are not used by English speakers from other countries. Here are a few. Billabong, a small body of still water near a river, an oxbow lake. Billy, a tin can with a wire handle used to boil water. Bingle, a car accident. Blowy, windy. Bush, the countryside. Coolibah tree, a type of eucalyptus tree. Dinkum, real or genuine. Down under, Australia. Good day, a common greeting short for good day. Hooroo, see you later. Jumbuck, a sheep. Matilda, another name for swag or a rolled up blanket. Roo, kangaroo. Sheila, a girl or woman. Swag, a sleeping bag or rolled up blanket. Swagman, a tramp. Trooper, a soldier or policeman. Tucker, a food. Tucker bag, a bag that food is kept in. Waltzing, wandering like a tramp. Woofer, a dog. What is the Australian slang word for Australia? Do you remember the nickname? Down under. It's known as the land down under. Down under. What is the Australian slang word for a kangaroo? Roo. Let's move on to page number 7. Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. I want to show you a picture of the Great Barrier Reef. This is the Great Barrier Reef in a photo that was taken way up high in the sky. And then here's a picture of the Great Barrier Reef from underwater. So we're going to learn a little bit about the Great Barrier Reef. The largest coral reef in the world, the Great Barrier Reef, is located off the northeastern coast of Australia. This reef is over 1,257 miles or 2,000 kilometers long. The massive structure of reef is formed from coral polyps, tiny marine animals that leave behind a hard, stony, branching structure made of limestone after they die. The warm, shallow, sheltered waters of this reef are rich in life, home to fish, sponges, jellyfish, anemones, crustaceans like crabs and shrimp, sea stars, mollusks like octopus and clams, snails, nudibranchs, turtles, sea snakes, and many other living things. Take a peek. Aren't they beautiful? Do coral reefs exist in cold or warm water? Where do these kind of fish live? Do they live in warm or cold water? That's right. They live in warm water. Warm water. Is coral an animal or a plant? They kind of look like plants, don't they? But did you catch that? The massive structure of the reef is formed from coral polyps, the tiny marine animals that leave behind a hard, stony, branching structure made of limestone after they die. So it's an animal. Let's move on to page number 8. Australia animals. The animals in Australia are very unique. Australia has been isolated, which means separated from, the other continents for millions of years. Its animals have adapted to island life and are quite different from animals in other parts of the world. Australia is home to many unusual animals, including monotremes, primitive egg-laying mammals like the duck-billed platypus and the echina. Many marsupials, pouched mammals like the kangaroo, koala, and wombat, the dingo, a type of dog, birds like the laughing kookaburra and the flightless emu, and many other animals. So we have some monotremes, the duck-billed platypus and the spiny anteater. They're special because they're mammals that actually lay eggs. We have the marsupials, the koala, the kangaroo, the wombat. They all have special pouches for their young. And then we have the dingo, which is a type of dog, and the emu, which is a bird that does not fly, and then the kookaburra, who sounds like a laughing person. Let's see if we can answer the questions. Name a monotreme that lives in Australia. Remember, a monotreme is a mammal that lays eggs. Do you remember the two? Duck-billed platypus or the echina, the spiny anteater. You can write either one here. It says, name a marsupial that lives in Australia. Remember, a marsupial is an animal that has a pouch for its young or its baby. Oh, the most obvious, kangaroo, but also the koala and the wombat. So you can write any one of those or all of them on this line if you like. And that's the end of our Australia book. We're going to be learning a lot more